Welcome to episode 58 of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. My apologies. I know this episode is later than usual, but I just couldn't bring myself to record earlier this week. Emotions were all over the place. Life was happening. It was just a lot going on in general, so I had to push the episode back to Sunday. So here I am. Before I get into this week's episode, in the wake of all the current events and protesting, Black Lives Matter, and the senseless killing of George Floyd in Minnesota, I'm going to take this time to take a moment of silence in his honor. It's so heavy in the world right now, you really can't scroll your timeline within the past week without seeing something regarding this issue. The protest, looting, fighting, the fight for Black Lives Matter. I love the unity. I pray for an actual shift besides just the social media postings. This one just feels different, and I hope and pray for a shift into the positive direction in terms of Black Lives Matter, justice being served, and becoming unified finally. My heart and prayers go out to everyone who's staying tuned into everything that's going on. It's like we get some new breaking news every second. Just don't forget to put your phone down for a second if you begin to feel feelings of overwhelm and emotional heaviness, because it's a lot to take in. It's heavy, so please take heed to the way you're feeling and do not hesitate to take a breather from the media if need be. So to keep it short and sweet for this week's episode, this will be more of an informative, transparent episode. This is a pause, not a stop. When the idea of podcasting was given to me through God, and I know that sounds cliche, but I'm being serious. At the time when the idea came about, my life was going into an awakening transitional phase. I had to pray over it, figure out what my niche was going to be, who my target audience would be geared towards. I'd bounce the idea off someone like a mentor of some sort. And what they told me in return had me discouraged as fuck at first. They'd ask me, well, what makes you think people will listen to you just because you think this podcast is a good idea? Do you think you've been through enough? At the time, I was 28, and so they'd ask me, do you think you've been through enough for people to relate to you just because you feel like you're the go-to for people, or you feel enlightened in a way, or you give good advice? And I was fucking shook. I was discouraged. I was in fear. I questioned myself and asked, well, damn, is he right? Will people listen to me? Who the fuck said I was qualified to create my own podcast? And then I was listening to Blessed and Bossed Up podcast. And this is a podcast that is by Tatum Tamia. And I forget the episode that she had spoke on when she said something along the lines of someone had tried to discourage her or throw salt on her dreams. And in return, she said, I'm qualified because God said I'm qualified. And that made me really think, yeah, I'm qualified because God said I'm qualified. And this is an idea that I feel like came straight from him for the time frame or what that particular time in my life I was facing or going through. And it made me think again, like, just because someone doesn't understand or feel you're qualified doesn't mean you have to shelf your idea or trash it. It's your gift, and if you're passionate about it, no one can take that from you. I've watched and read so many interviews about Nipsey, and in almost everyone he talks about how when he was first starting out and how he come up with an idea, people would think he was out of his mind, but he never quit. He kept going. And if your idea doesn't scare you or challenge you, then it's not an idea, because your dreams should scare you. They should challenge you to want to learn more and do more and grow more. But when I say the universe works in mysterious ways, I'd pray and then I'd start getting horoscopes and see messages on my timeline or get advice from a friend, and they would align with podcasting, or messages that say don't take advice from people who weren't blessed with a gift that God gave you, because they would never understand. My career path is along the lines of being a humanitarian of some sort and helping and motivating others to be their best selves of some sort. And I had gotten a message on the Pattern app. And this app is kind of basically a horoscope app that calculates your birth chart and gives you messages depending on your birth chart, the calculations of your birth chart. And so one day I received this message, and it said, your destiny is to find a sacred calling that allows you to open your heart and tap into your healing abilities. And honestly, it wasn't until I got deeper into podcasting, I may have been on like my 30th episode or so, and I started realizing that people were really fucking with it, and they were giving me feedback, and they were letting me know that I was on to something. And this is why I always say that in doing this, it's been growing and healing for me as well as it's been for you, I hope. And I'm learning and finding that I'm having to become more accountable and practicing what I preach. So in a sense, I'm on this journey with y'all too. I'm tapping into my career path. I'm figuring out what God wants to do with me in regards to podcasting. And this is only the beginning. I feel blessed to say that God has been molding me into my career path through podcasting, and which I'll share at a later time when the time is right. I just ask that you keep me in your prayers and following through with it, staying encouraged and driven in regards to that. And my advice to you is, when God drops an idea off to you, do your homework, pray on it, ask for confirmation, and go for it, because you have no idea what it can lead to unless you take that leap of faith. So, because I'm surrendering and letting God have total control of this thing, with that being said, I have decided to take a pause on podcasting. I need to be still for a while. I'm just taking a step back to revamp, brainstorm, and revisit some things in terms of goals, episodes, and future plans for it. A rebrand of some sort is what I'm calling it. And I just won't be recharging while on this break. I'm going to be pushing myself more than ever to learn more, to come up with new segments. I just don't want to sell myself short. You know how you feel like you're on to something, but something's missing? That's how I feel. So I'm on the hunt to find out that something. So with prayer and slowing down a bit, I'll find it. I know I will. I just never want to feel like I'm selling myself short. Like I said, not pushing myself to be the best of my ability or what I'm capable of, and being repetitious. I almost feel like I'm in quicksand with it sometimes, like I'm going nowhere fast, and I do not like the way that feels. And because mostly I'm fairly new to the creative world, I've only been doing podcasting for a year and some change, I have so much more to learn. So I'm not exactly sure when I'll return, but just know when I do, I'll be back and better than ever. I'm learning to be patient with the process of life in general, so I asked that you guys will be patient with me during this process as well. Thank you so much for understanding and for your support. Be sure to catch up on episodes 1 through 58. Share them with your family and friends. If you're feeling supportive like that, check the playlist out. I will be adding songs to the playlist, and I'll be active with that even during my brief pause. And lastly, leave reviews on any platform you tune in on. My prayer is that you are finding a gem on each and every episode I've put out in some way, and you're able to apply it to your life. So in closing, I take pride in my craft. I am most proud of myself and brand for stepping out of the norm and taking a risk and being vulnerable, especially with podcasting, because there just aren't enough people being authentic, honest, vulnerable, and taking accountability as it pertains to their lives and wanting to do and be better, and not just saying that they want to do and be better, but I'm actively, trying my best to become the best version of myself, become the best woman, the best mother, the best sister, the best friend that I can be. And I hope that through my own personal experiences and lessons that I've learned on these episodes that I've recorded, I never talk about anything that I have not been through firsthand, or that I haven't learned from, or that I'm learning from. So I hope that in me dropping these episodes on this podcast is that I am reassuring my listeners that I'm just like you. I'm human. I'm imperfect too, but I'm learning and I'm putting my best foot forward to become the best possible version of myself. And even when I do make a mistake, or when I do fall on my ass, I do not let that define who I am. I just use it as a stepping stone towards my growth to be the best woman that I can be. And I hope I'm doing just that. So here's to a growing, enlightening, and refreshing pause. And in advance, shout out to y'all for being understanding, patient, and for the continued support of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. I'll talk to y'all soon. With love and gratitude, G.